So it's planting time, and there's a lot to think about right now because when we think about planting, there's some things we got to take into consideration, which is, are we going to, what is the timing that we're going to start our seeds? You know, what is the time frame of the selection of the variety that we got? And what are the varieties we're going to work with? So what we need to first understand is that there are three different, there is a Rudelius, I'm not quite sure on the spelling of it, but this is number one. This is what they call an auto flower. Okay? And what that means is that it has a 72-day maturity, no matter what happens in the daylight. Okay. We then go to, and this is kind of controversial because they have sativa and they have indica. Okay. There's also a hybrid in here that is 105 days. And that's called a fast version. It's also called a quickie. So it matures quicker. It's got a 105-day maturity. The 72-day, so that is called Rudelius. That's an autoflower. So what happened is they found that in the mountains in Russia, there was a very short summer, and there was a species that they found that automatically started to flower at day 14 from the time the seed was planted. And then it goes to 72 days, bingo, it's done. So what they've been able to do is they've been able to take that and breed that with some of the other THC varieties. So the other component that we look at here is that we have Rudelius, which is our number one. What's our time frame? Sativa indica, which is 2. But then 3, what kind of cannabinoids do we want? Do we want CBD? Do we want THC? Do we want some new exciting ones like THCV or CBDV? And you say, I don't know what I want. Well, let me explain a little bit about what they do. So CBD is really neat because what it does is it is hitting receptors throughout our human body without it being psychotropic. The word psychotropic means that when THC hits the part of the brain for our perception of reality, it shifts our perception of reality and time. That's called psychotropic. So that's why people describe it different. So if we all consume THC, you might say, oh, it gives me energy and creative. Oh, it makes me happy and I'm just in the moment. Another person says, oh, it allows me to sleep. So it affects all of us different. And the reason is because we are so different. We have so many differences in our microbes that produce the neurochemicals throughout our body. We have different receptor systems that are sensitive or not as sensitive. So it affects us all different. I might be able to take and consume 50 grams of milligrams of THC, whereas 5 milligrams of THC, you might say, whoa, that's too much for me. Because we have different tolerances and different experiences with it. The other thing is that when receptors get hit a lot, they tend to recede inward on the receptor head so that they protect themselves, so it doesn't overstimulate your systems. I'll show these charts again because I think this is important. Grab this one. So this is the human endo. The word endo means inside cannabinoid system. So every one of our bodies has this. Every mammal on the planet has this. Nature designed this as a very efficient way for the human body or any mammal to take care of itself. Even fish have a system like this. So when the brain sees that one of these systems is out of balance, out of a state called homeostasis, which is where everything in nature wants to be, state of homeostasis. So when it senses a deficiency, it produces a chemical called an endocannabinoid, which is a neurochemical that hits a specific lock and key to be able to excite that receptor, to charge that system, to go back to a state of homeostasis, whether it be your immune system, whatever system it is. Give me 1 second, let me just silence it. So whatever system it is, what it's going to do is it's going to stimulate that system to go to a state of homeostasis. So let's say somebody is experiencing a ton of anxiety. We'll grab a seat there for you. Join right in, my friend. See ya. So let's say somebody is in a state of anxiety, and then CBD comes into the body. What the anxiety is doing is that somebody is thinking about something that happened in the past. Maybe somebody was in overseas in war. They come back. All of a sudden, they have this memory and these thoughts that were very traumatic, very emotional. It's called post-traumatic stress syndrome. When we think about that stuff, and when we don't try to think about it, it's still there. Well, that causes a lot of anxiety in the human brain. When CBD hits the receptor for the conscious mind, it makes that no longer the path of least resistance. It allows the human mind to be in the present moment, because that's truly in nature where you're meant to be. We don't see animals thinking about yesterday or tomorrow, but we have free will to think. So what do? We go everywhere in our head, and that's not healthy in a lot of cases. Matter of fact, what do? We have practices called meditation, prayer, and all these things, yoga, to be able to concentrate our mind to be in the present moment. That's truly where we're meant to be as human beings, because really when you're in the present moment, everything is fine. It's only when we start thinking about what other people have or what I don't have or what I'm missing, all that, boom, anxiety comes in, thoughts come in, and we're out of the present moment. We're really not enjoying it. Okay. So the beauty is that the different cannabinoids hit different receptors throughout the body. So we know about THC. So THC is one of them. So if somebody wants to get high, and here's the problem that I see is that, you're talking about 25% THC levels now, because they've been able to breed it to get that, because that's what people think is really good stuff. Well, it's got its time and its place, but it's not the end all to be all. It's a combination, because all of a sudden, if all you take and you increase CBD or THC, so CBD we talked about, THCV, really a cool cannabinoid. I grew some this year. I can't wait to get products with it. We're in the testing mode. We're developing products. THCV is non-psychotropic. What it does is it decreases appetite, so they call it skinny weed or weight loss weed. It works with the sugar metabolism system of the human body, which is really cool. It also helps with forgetfulness. And there's a potential that it can work with Alzheimer's, because again, we're working with receptors throughout the brain system. We know that from THC. Well, THCV is a really cool one. It's a new one. And that's one that is up and coming. So we're growing that. That's another option you can get. Now, the interesting thing about seeds is that over the last 2 years, seeds have been taken to the court system whereby they do not contain any THC. Therefore, they really are not federally illegal to sell. So you can go to a site. One of the sites I get my seeds from is a company called GTR, which is a retail outlet for their seeds. And they grow all my hemp seeds, and they grow all of these special cannabinoids. So you can look at some of those and see the different ones. Okay. We're not sure on the legality of us being able to sell seeds yet, because of the fact that we were going to get our license in the regulated cannabis with the OCM. We have to comply with whatever regulations. But from what we can give you the information, we can make sure that you can get what you need, and see if we can maybe through our hemp license use our CBD seeds, the THC seeds. I know the OCM is frowning on us selling them to Innocence Cannabis here, so we won't be able to do that. CBDV This is a beautiful cannabinoid. Now, we have this one in our CBD side of our tinctures and gummies. And the neat part about it is this, is that one of the things we learned early on was that CBD stops, or what it does is it hits a receptor for the nervous system where people that have seizures, what I'm observing is that it's lack of homeostasis between the electrical and the mechanical system of the human body, and you get a seizure activity in the human body. CBD, that's how we learned about Charlotte's Web, stops and hits a receptor and stops seizures. And that's how we learned why it was so good. It got national attention. Now we had the hemp bill in 2018. That's why now people are realizing this stuff is okay. Only one is psychotropic. Actually, two, there's delta-8, which is really not found in nature. So we're now learning about, how CBD works. Well, CBDV, which is a new cannabinoid that we've been able to breed into very high numbers now, as far as not being a minor, it's now close to a major in a couple varieties, twice as effective as regular CBD for seizure activity. Clinical studies. So,
Was that CBDC you said?
CBDV.
Z?
V is in Victor. Yep, right here, CBDV.
Gotcha.
Okay? Now, there's 151 different cannabinoids. It's the beauty of this stuff. Okay? And we're just starting to learn about this stuff because federally it's still illegal, so a lot of colleges and universities can't do the research. So a lot of guys like me are doing research because we have people in the community to come in. So a good friend of mine at North Tonawanda Market, John from the Avenue House smoke place. He makes great smoked sausage and had some problems, and he's got Parkinson's. So I see him at the farmer's market, and I'm talking to him, and he's telling me about the Parkinson's. I go back to my stand and go, wait a minute. I got forbidden in a tincture. I go up to him, I said, will you try this for me? Sure enough, he tries it, comes back 2 weeks later, 90% he's been able to reduce his system where it's not out of whack. Now, by the way, we're finding through research that the microbiome is the cause of what that system going out of whack is. What we're learning is that diseases are symptoms of an imbalance in the gut, and they appear as an end disease that we look at, and then we try to treat that, which I think is the wrong approach. We go to the source. We don't go to that source, we go to the endocannabinoid system to balance it out. And then we got to look here, because this is where it all, the gut microbiome. That's where it's all starting. That's why we're seeing so many people. And mental imbalance. It's not mental illness in my mind. It's mental imbalance, because we are all just, at any given time, we react to something based on the net sum of the neurological chemicals at any given time in our brain. So if I'm in a really good mood and something happens, it's okay. But if I'm not in a good mood because I haven't been eating the right foods and I'm not getting support for the mental balance and I'm not taking anything from the endocannabinoid system to bring that balance in, man, it's like another bad thing just happened, and it's like it's the end of the world, and it's only getting worse. And then you go down the pathways of the other shit going on, and before long, it's like, whew, you need a break. And that happens, and we all do that if we don't have the support. And ultimately, I'll teach some classes on it because it's really profound, and what we're learning about the stuff that we don't see. It's trillions and trillions of microbes, and it affects everything. So even when we're growing cannabis, and to grow cannabis, when we put that seed in there and that root goes down, there's a miraculous thing that if that is grown in optimum conditions, a mycelium, which is a fungus, will come along and it'll go intercellular with the plant and become part of the plant, where the plant will tell it what it needs, and the mycelium will shoot out and bring whatever it needs back in return for carbohydrates from the plant. They have a synergistic relationship. And then the plant needs a certain chemical. Well, it can't find that chemical in nature. So what happens is a microbe will make that chemical by breaking down some organic matter. So you need to have the microbes in the soil, just like we need to have microbes in our gut in order to break all the food down. So we get the neurochemical balance, the plants get what they need, the mycelium brings it in, bingo, you got a healthy plant. Then get this, two myceliums connect up from two different plants. Boom, it lights up. Now the plants are communicating through this network, and they can share nutrition and they can communicate about what's happening in the environment. That's how these plants will work. So if we know that, then we want to try to give them the right conditions so that they can flourish. So we want to pick our variety, want to pick our timing, and then when we start to think about the soil, we want to think about it just like we would if we were trying to produce the perfect microbial balance in that soil. We could use chemicals. You could use N, P, and K. You could live on vitamins for quite a while. You could be okay. You'd be healthy. You go along, but all of a sudden, you're not going to experience life the way somebody else would if they were getting all in the nutritional balance. And I can tell you, I saw it firsthand in myself because I went through an autoimmune disease with salmonella poisoning. I had writer's syndrome afterwards. Changed all my microbiome, and then they wanted to give me steroids to shut the immune system down. I said, no, I want to learn what's going on. So I dug into this amazing journey of understanding what is truly going on. And now it's very clear. We just need to be aware that we're a super organism. We have all these microbes, and there's microbes around everything. They were here before anything was here, and they'll be here after everything is gone. Yeah, they're the smarter ones, because guess what? They hitched into human beings so they could inhabit the whole planet because we took them everywhere. And they got more than we have to lose if we die, because all of them died. So they're fighting to keep you alive. It's just lack of understanding that keeps us from being able to optimize. So anyway, we'll talk about that another time. So now we have to decide. Autoflower is 72 days. If I was going to grow an autoflower, I want to probably start the plant because it's only going to go 72 days. I want to probably harvest it near the end of July because that's when the days are still really long and you want to get those nice juicy buds. So we probably want to start that plant just around the end of May. Okay? The other thing about an autoflower is this. Because it only has 72 days, you gotta not disturb the roots. You gotta keep started and just let it go. Some people will plant them outside, right in the soil if they're very careful. I like to start mine in a flat, but as soon as the seed emerges, I carefully take that and the long root is there, and I'll lay it in the ground, and I'll pat it right in there, and I baby them. Because they're very, very tender. If you stress them at all, they don't have a lot of time to recover. If you grow them really good, you can get them to grow, maybe they average about 4 ounces per plant, but you could get as high as, I've seen people get as high as 3/4 of a pound per plant. I grew one, it had ideal conditions in a hoop house and it was 6 foot tall and it was just loaded. But again, it's ideal conditions in a hoop house, sand where it could just go right down that root, go down. And once they get hindered in any way, you don't get as much. Okay? The next thing we want to look at is we have the quickies or fast versions, which is a good option. That's nice because let's say we want to grow a sativa. Well, the thing about a sativa is that a sativa could be up to 12 weeks for maturity. That's a long time. So what happens is this, on the regular photo series plants, you have a time sensitive that when days get less than 12 hours of sunshine, which happens, I believe it's right around August 6th, that is when the plant starts to go into its flowering stage. So if I'm going 12 weeks, that's 3 months. From August, September, October, November. I'm harvesting Durban poison and it had snow on it the first year. Do I want to grow Durban poison? I love what Durban poison has to offer, but I search for hybrids that have the characteristics, but they are shortened in their maturity because I don't want to go that far out. Now, forbidden, which I do for my CBDV, I grow it because I need the CBDV. It's hardy as heck. It can grow. I just let it go and I use it for biomass. But when I'm trying to grow good flower, I probably want to get something that's a little earlier that doesn't have a lot of issues with disease near the end of the year because of the moistures. Okay, so let me clean this up a little bit here. So figuring out which cannabinoid you want to do, spending the time now because you got time to do some research. Because we're right now, middle of April. So let me talk a little bit more about indicas, okay? So an indica, the nice part about it, it's short. Okay, it's very bushy. It tends to be more of a body high, is the way it's described. Some people say, it can put you to sleep, but I disagree with that because what I'm finding is that a lot of times it depends on when you harvest it. And here's why. When the plant is growing, there is a cannabinoid which is called CBG that we call the stem cell of all cannabinoids because CBG is present and it turns into THC, THCV, CBD, CBDV, any one of the 100 and some cannabinoids. So we call it the base cannabinoid. Matter of fact, we've been able to breed where now I can get CBG, which is an amazing cannabinoid. CBGA, which is the acid form, which is how it's found on the plant, and I'll get into that in a minute, actually has an effect on the human body that it stopped the virus on the COVID virus from multiplying because it was able to allow the human body's receptor system to cause the immune system to suppress that process. Okay, and again, I remember seeing a report on it. I don't, and I have to be careful because I'm not endorsing it for that purpose. What I am saying is that our bodies are powerful, and if we can address the receptor systems throughout the body, then the body can do what it's capable of. There is a theory, and I feel it's true, is that nature doesn't give us a problem with also the solution being out there at the same time. And that is truly how I feel. That's the way nature is. It's balance and homeostasis. So the indicas, the nice part about them is that they only have about an 8 to 9 week flowering period. So now I can get end of September. I can be harvesting maybe even into early October. So it's important when you're looking at your varieties to look at the flowering time. How many weeks is it? And then use that when you're starting to figure out what you want to grow. And all of them have the flowering time. So like the ones that are a little bit slower growing are the indicas. So I'm kind of going to push it this year because it's going to be the last time I'm going to grow outdoors because I'm applying for an indoor license. So we just started our indicas. I'm growing Snow G and I'm growing Afghan Kush, Afghani. So both of those I'm starting. And they just popped after 72 hours. So I'll be getting those into pots. So here's the other thing is, if you're doing a photo, you want to use a pot like this, because this is plastic. So usually what I do is first I'll start, and this is a great way. These are called cow pots. and they're made from cow dung. So it's fertilizer, it's reused, cleaned up, doesn't smell at all. But you put your soil in here and then we'll start the seeds in here. Then when the root comes down, you take this, transplant it right inside the other pot. Now there's no transplant shock. And if you were going outside, you could go right out there. And then I'll run this for a while. And here I want the root to kind of run around. If I were going to grow the whole season, Jenna, could you grab me one of those grow bags there? So if we're going to grow in containers, which is a great option for autoflowers, use a bag like this. The reason we use a bag like this is that number one, it's bigger, it'll hold more soil. Remember, an autoflower is only going to be there 72 days. So we can put it in this thing, we could carry it around, we could start it earlier, make sure you get it in the sun all the time, but in on cold nights. And when the roots hit the outside fabric and they hit air, they split and they go the other way. So it doesn't get root bound. So you get tremendous nutritional uptake in these bags and you don't get root bound. And you don't have to worry about overwatering because they can let the water seep through. So if you wanted to, you could grow a full season plant, but I'd get at least a 30 to 40 gallon pot. We had 50-gallon pots here and we were growing a plant called Forbidden, and we had it right here. It was above those lights there. So, and that took about 9 months to grow that tall. We just kept taking the light up and we ran out of room to take the light up. Decided it was time. All right, so what I will do is I'll show you this, is that we're going to do a quick seed start just so that you can see what we're going to do, and next week we'll show the results. So this is just soil. What I'm going to do is just stick my finger in there and I stick it in right up to the end of my fingernail, just kind of make an indent. And then I'll drop the seeds in there and just cover them up. And then I'm going to put about 1.5 ounces of water. And I used to just pour it in there, and the college student came in with his mentor. He's got a turkey baster. So I want to use a turkey baster, but you put a little bit of water in each one. You know, so we're going to do Forbidden here, because we're going to grow these here at the farm. So I just put 1 seed per spot. These seeds are very small for Forbidden. They're all different.
All female.
All feminized. So I'll explain how that works as well. So what happens is, in order to get all feminized seeds, they take a beautiful female plant that's growing and it's getting ready to flower. What they do is they stress the hell out of it. They spray it with colloidal silver, which causes it to be stressed, and it wants to survive, so it morphs into a male and it starts to produce pollen sacs. However, all of the pollen sacs only have female genes and they pollinate a female flower, so you can only have female seeds. That's how they do it. Okay. Before, we used to get everything fertilized, and then you got to start the seeds, and then you got to watch real close because you start to see the sex on them. And there's ways to identify that, but don't even mess with that. What you do have to look out for is that once you're in production and we're growing and we're in flowering, you got to watch so that no male branches come off your plants. Because it can happen in nature. We have it every year, whether it be CBD or THC. We grow enough, 300-400 plants or 1,000 plants, we see it out there. Just a branch will come out, and all of a sudden it's got, you just boom, grab a garbage bag, put it right in there, tighten it up, and walk it out of the field. Get it out of there. You don't want that pollen anyway. Now, you can also get seeds from GTR that are seedless. They're triploids, they're called. They genetically have crossed them to the point that they cannot get pregnant at all, and they can put 25% more nutrient uptake, And the buds are bigger and juicier. And they have them in THC as well. So there's all kinds of new genetics coming out. So, questions, we covered a lot of stuff. Yes.
You said, if you see that male branch, how am I gonna know?
Okay, so the male branch will be, and what I'll do is next week I'll bring a picture, because for me to try to describe it wouldn't do justice. I've got pictures of it. I take them and, you know, it's like when I see that an alarm goes off. You're walking in the field and you, oh my God, you know, I got a guy in the middle. I mean, you got all these beautiful ladies there. One guy shows up.
It's always somebody, right?
And he's smiling like hell. So, yeah. Any other questions? So we got plenty of time to plan, okay? Sativas, you can still get the effects of sativa, but go with a hybrid. Because up here, you know, I'll grow my forbidden, but boy, oh boy, you know, it's hard to harvest in November. You know, and you fight some snow. The biggest thing I see if you're thinking about where you want to grow is you can deal with dryness, but you can't deal with too much water. Water will kill you. Dryness you can deal with because you can always water. So try to have a raised bed if you're in the soil. An area high. Don't get in a low area. You get in that low area, you get a lot of rain. That's what happened to me last year. Out of 1,200 plants, lost 700 plants. Oh, devastating. You know, these are your babies. I had every hole, 1,200 holes, all plugged, every single one. Had a couple slugs that were eaten up. I got rid of the slugs. Everything's good, and then the rains came. And you can't aerate the soil when it's flooded. So think about that, you know. And what we did was we made a mistake, because what we did was we ripped the soil to be able to allow the roots to grow out. We fertilized it and everything. By ripping that soil, we actually created a trench for all that water to sit in. So we didn't realize we were going to have that kind of water. You do want to prepare your soil. You can boom, do one hole with a postal digger if you wanted that taproot to go low, because most of the roots will go sideways and they won't have that flooding, and they'll be dry enough to handle it. But, you know, you learn. It's the only way.
So if you're just growing 2 plants at home, can you do them in a 5-gallon bucket instead of placing them into the ground?
If you're going to do a photo series, it's got to be bigger than a 5-gallon bucket.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not big enough. Yeah, I would go at least 30 gallons if you want a good plant. Unless you want to grow a short one and you're going to start it maybe late June, early July, and you want to grow a smaller one, you can go maybe with a 20-gallon bucket because it won't get so big, because it'll go into flower same time. Because remember, August 6th is no matter when you plant, that's when it goes from veg to flower. That's it. But right around the beginning of August is when boom, it switches over. Then we go into flowering stage. So that's your key. Okay. Yeah.
A comment from online. I'm thinking of doing 4 plants on wheels so I can put it in the garage if it rains too much, or for limiting light time. Does that seem?
So don't worry about too much rain because you're in pots. So that rainwater is super water. It's like really valuable because it's falling naturally and got microbes in it, passing through microbes and rain clouds and everything. So you want to grab that water, especially with that pot. But yeah, great idea. You don't have to worry if it gets below, you know, like 40 degrees is good. If you're going into 30s, it might, you know, get a little upset, but it won't hurt it. You know, I've had plants easily go down during season down to, depending on how old they are, but flowering plants, I've had it go down to 27 degrees, 26 degrees, and they were fine. Leaves were fine. You know, there's some things we can do to help with that. You know, like liquefied seaweed early on is really good to be able to fortify the plant. Again, you build a super healthy plant, and then it can handle nature's whatever nature gives it. And the way we build super healthy plants is that we give it all the ingredients. We're not giving it fertilizer, we're giving the microbes. We're gonna make sure we got microbes in the soil, we're gonna make sure we're feeding the microbes. And if we do that, then we'll have a great plant. That's how it works. Same thing with human health. There is no difference. We are just like the plants. The beauty is that, you know, they are here to help save the planet right now. They can help us be part of the solution because we are messed up, and they can bring us homeostasis. And they also can clean up soil. That's another thing. If you have any kind of soil that you know there was any kind of junk pile around, or let's say an old firing range where there might be bullets in the ground, cannabis will suck those things out. It'll purify the earth and use it for reclamation. So you don't want to grow in those areas. That's why we're required as OCM producers that we got to get everything lab tested to see, make sure we didn't clear that soil and put it in the flower and have somebody, you know, make a tincture or smoke it. So cadmium, nickel, lead, all those they look for. And same thing, pesticides, you shouldn't need any pesticides. Very natural. The biggest problem I see with people that are starting out growing is that they overdo it. You know, they overtry. It's kind of like observe, spend more time looking than you are doing. You know, I spend hours looking at my plants. You know, it's a joy. You get a connection to them, and there's not a lot you got to do. They just spend time with them. So, any other questions?
Couple.
Yeah.
Does every seed produce a plant? Or do you
Yeah,
ever get
they should.
berries?
You know, most seeds I get like 95, 99% germination.
So there's no way of
Oh,
putting it in water and seeing if they drop or float like an egg, you know?
so, oh, you mean putting it in?
Yeah, just to
So a
be
lot of
sure.
people will start their seeds in water.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I've done it that way. Here's the thing. So you put your seed in water. If the next day it doesn't sink to the bottom, knock it down. Because it'll soak into the seed and then it'll start the germination process. You'll see a tiny tail. Then as soon as you see that tail, you take a pair of tweezers and you carefully put it with the tail down into the soil. Okay, so it's quite a bit to do. You could do it that way. I like just putting them in the soil, and then because we just want to keep it moist, what I will do is I will take saran wrap and wrap it so that the sunlight can come in, but the moisture can't get out, and that's all I want to do. And I don't want to overwater it, just 1.5 ounces per cube, and then just cover it with saran wrap so that moisture stays in and doesn't evaporate out. And then after 72 hours, right around 70 degrees is all you need. 72 hours, they'll pop. Another day if you need it. But once they pop, then you know, don't overwater, a little bit of water, and we'll start talking more about that next week. But very easy to pop. We'll start these. I'll put water in these, and we'll see how far we get next week, and you know, see how the process goes. Anything else? Now you said one plant out of one seed. So there is a thing called cloning, and we'll talk about that in the third class, about how that takes place, and also trimming and observations about what we're doing and the structure of the clone. Get that into the third week. Okay. All right. We should stop the recording because we're at a half hour. A little over.